What makes a great training arc? Is it learning how to be a leader? The skills to fight the best of the best? Or perhaps is it seeking out a mentor that ties these things together? In the Kingdom Anime's mini training arc, we get all of these and more. Shin's journey first began as a servant without any genetic talent to rely on, coupled with a dream far from possible. But it is in this arc that he gets that little bit closer to achieving his dream, to becoming the greatest general under the heavens. The one thing that sets his journey apart isn't all the personal growth that he's experienced up to this point. It is finally meeting the great general he could only dream about as a child, meeting the one that would act as a compass to guide him towards his dream. So what is the main thing that comes about with a training arc? Well, usually training arcs mean character development. We'll start with this. This arc, or this mini arc, is only 2 episodes. But in these 2 episodes, it felt like we got so much out of it. The beginning of the arc starts off lighthearted. Shin was recently promoted to 100-man commander, which is awesome. But more importantly, he was able to buy his first set of armor. For someone like Shin and his upbringing, that's like purchasing a Lamborghini. To make things even sweeter for Shin, on his way home, he runs into Kyoukai, one of his war buddies, who came all this way just to tell him to be careful about the way he fights. Imagine that, a female comrade you slept alongside, bled alongside, fought alongside, and she goes to your home with the sole reason of being worried about your safety. Bro's living the dream. But on a more serious note, later in the episode, she emphasizes this. She's not wrong. Shin has been quite reckless in all of his past battles, but his response might be surprising to some. Shin already has the maturity to recognize that there is more to success on the battlefield than relying on momentum and shouting alone. A real fight requires way more. For Shin to say this is very mature, and nicely represents the growth he had as a result of his direct experiences with fighting so far, rather than direct mentorship. See guys, Shin isn't dumb. Additionally, I really do enjoy the playfulness between Shin and Kyoukai. It is very light romance without being overbearing. First of all, while sleeping next to each other in Shin's home, Shin can't help but stare at Kyoukai because of how cute she really is when he looks closely. Kyoukai does her best tsundere cosplay and proceeds to call him an idiot. Classic. Right after this, out of the blue, she calls him weird. Shin of course is bamboozled by this, but not for long, because she says it's okay because she's weird too. That is game if I've ever seen it. Another instance, Shin earlier in the episode brought up the time where he and Kyoukai rode on the horse together. He got all shy because she was sitting right behind him, and that's when he figured out she was actually a girl. This seems so irrelevant, but it's a nice touch because Kyoukai trusts Shin and chose to be vulnerable with him, even though it's not easy being a woman in the warring states. Though we know what they all say. There's 2 sides to every coin. Yes, Kyoukai has her eyes set on revenge because what else is there to live for? But Shin says something very surprising in her eyes, that once she's done, she needs to get her ass back here immediately because she is his beloved comrade, and that'll never change. He has already counted Kyoukai as part of his 100-man unit and won't settle for anyone else. He says there will always be a spot for her. Game. So this is the first highlight of this arc, the development of their beautiful relationship. Moving on, a question all of us probably have is, why is Kyoukai so damn strong? Well, this arc actually delves into this and reveals to us Kyoukai's backstory. If I had to explain it in a single word, it would definitely be tragic. Before we dive into Kyokai's direct history, it's important to know the context of what she is, because she's not a normal human. Kyoukai is someone that was born a Shiyu, or in other words, as part of a clan of female assassins. Now, this is where it gets juicy. The Shiyu always viewed the sword as a sacred object to be used in holy rites, and not originally made for the purpose of killing. As a result, Shiyu are essentially priestesses who dance with their swords to then summon divine power, and this is where Kyoukai gets her insane strength from. But ironically enough, the Shiyu use this dance to kill. Now onto Kyokai's direct history. Though the Shiyu are a clan, there is technically only one person that represents them and is known as the Shiyu. To decide this, in a brutal rite known as the Ritual, multiple tribes within the clan nominate 2 candidates, who all then fight to the death until only one person is left standing, and they take up the Shiyu title. In Kyokai's ritual specifically, she was chosen with her sister Kyosho to take part. Here comes the tragedy. Kyoukai and Kyosho are speaking about tomorrow's ritual. Kyosho always dreamt of seeing the outside world, but despite this, she still didn't want Kyoukai to die and wanted the same dream for her. It didn't matter though, because Kyoukai was already set on sacrificing herself, so she goes to sleep with this plan in mind. Come the next day, Kyoukai wakes up and finds that the ritual ritual is already over. What? She looks over at the windowsill. Someone made her oversleep with incense. Kyoukai then runs over to the battlefield, frantically looking for her sister, but she can't find her. That means she won. She's the new Shiryu, but she could not be more wrong. There laid a broken sword, her sister's, snapped in two, and right next to it, her lifeless body. This wasn't even the worst part. The worst part is that as soon as the ritual began, Kyosho got jumped by pretty much every single other candidate. She had no chance to begin with. So essentially, Kyoukai lives with the sole purpose of revenge, to kill Yurin, the one who plotted against Kyosho and is the current Shiryu. This is the second highlight of this arc, Kyokai's entire story motivation. Now we have the Karyo Ten plotline. The only thing we know about Ten right now is that she is some little bird girl that happened to run into Shin and Sei and can now be that little bit closer to her dream of being stinking rich by knowing the king. Though while Shin and Kyoukai talk in the house, Ten goes outside to reflect. Her whole life has been about one thing, survival. Whether she had to steal or plot with others to hurt people, she did whatever she needed to survive for as long as she could remember. This all changed when she met Shin and Sei. Her life became exciting. The rebellion even was a thrill, though it was dangerous. But now with things calming down, she realizes it was only because of Shin she was able to feel this way. And so, seeing Shin becoming a 100-man commander, Heki commanding 1,000 men, Shobunkun growing as an official, and Sei as a king, she feels inadequate. Going with the flow and life is just surviving all over again. Work, eat, sleep, repeat. Everyone is risking their life and moving forward while she remains still. This can be relatable to many people, so I think Ten's journey is actually quite a good one. By the end of episode 23, Ten resolves that the next time Shin leaves for a war, she will also leave to seek a place where she is able to belong, somewhere she doesn't have to use her muscles. There must be something she can do, intriguing, and something to look forward to. This is the third highlight of this arc. Karyo Ten might not be liked by all, but has great potential. Now, this is a training arc, so you might be wondering, where's the training? Well, in episode 24, it begins with Shin asking his Uber driver En to take him on a trip. How exciting. Not so much for En though, because Shin actually wants to go to General Ouki's territory, or as Shin would say, General Fat Lips. Which terrifies En. We'll get back to this. First, it is important to know why Shin is seeking out Ouki in the first place. Yes, he wants to get stronger, but Shin recently found out from Sei that Ouki is the last surviving member of a legendary military tandem of past known as Chin's 6 great generals. So epic. Of course, there had to be more to Ouki than his juicy lips. The 6 great generals were a collective of generals that dominated China during the reign of King Shou, Chin's king of 3 generations ago, who would go on to be known as the god of the battlefield. This is because not only did this tandem make Chin the most feared of all the states, but every time Chin's armies began marching, enemy states would seal off their gates, fearing they might encounter one of the 6, that their men would inform them that Hikuki or Okotsu or Kosho or Shibusaku or Kyo or of course Ouki were at their gates. But the title of a Chin 6 Great was not only that. There were 2 things that made them formidable and unique. First, the special freedom to wage war whenever and wherever, and secondly, a loyalty to their king and each other that could only be likened to the unwavering nature of iron. Even just hearing about them, I can understand and feel the same excitement as Shin. Now that we know some background, we can shift over to Shin's arrival at Ouki's territory, where he starts knocking on the gate, to which Toe opens it, only to quickly close it upon seeing Shin. This guy is too funny. So it seems like Shin's attempt to visit Ouki unannounced has ended in failure. At least it feels like that. But not long before, Ouki just happens to return from training and runs into Shin. There we go, a lucky break. So now Shin is feasting his eyes on a general's castle, something Hyo and him could only dream of, before the scene quickly cuts to him sharing a bath with Ouki and multiple of his soldiers. Talk about interesting. Anyway, Ouki cuts to the chase. Why is Shin here? It can't simply be for training. I mean, you know Shobunkun, a seasoned warrior, who actually catches a huge stray because Shin says he ain't nothing. He wants to learn from Ouki, a real deal great general, the last of Chin's 6 great generals. With that, Ouki takes Shin to the fields to talk further. Here it gets even more juicy if this arc wasn't already. We learn about the nature of Chin's 6 great generals, their true nature, because this perspective comes from one of their own. Ouki said something so hype, that it wasn't these 6 generals were selected to fill in the system. Rather, these 6 individuals were already devastating countless battlefields and slaying many enemies along the way, that their military fame spread across the entire Middle Kingdom, to the point enemies would kneel and surrender simply off their approach. So the system only existed to make things even easier for them to operate on top of how easy it already was. Aura. This is what aura is. Corny, but true. Toe makes a great point to wrap this all up. The system is meaningless without the necessary personnel, and to this point, Ouki says the reason why Shin's 6th grade generals are hailed as a legend, and their strength is still remembered 3 generations later, is because despite many holding the title of general within Shin, after all this time, no one was worthy of picking up the mantle. Does this speak to the weakness of Shin's current strength? Or maybe does it speak more to the overwhelming might of Shin in the past? This is way too awesome. So learning about Shin's 6th grade generals is the 4th highlight of this arc for obvious reasons. Okay, that's all the background surrounding Shin's 6th grade generals done, for real this time. It is now time for the actual training part of the training arc. When Ouki once again refers to Shin's ambition, he talks about it as if Shin wants to climb to his level as a great general, and he laughs in an almost One Piece-esque way about it, which is hilarious. But Shin comes in with a heavy correction. It isn't enough to climb to Ouki's level. His dream, his wish, is to surpass the likes of Ouki and become the greatest general in history. Because of this, Ouki decides he likes Shin, and so comes the birth of their glorious master and student relationship. With this, Shin decides to ask Ouki once again to officially train him, and in response, Ouki rejects Shin, strips him of his sword, and kicks him off a cliff. What a surprising turn of events. Maybe the worst thing she can say isn't no. Little does Shin know though, the training has already begun. Ouki has kicked Shin into an ongoing battle within one of Shin's stateless areas. This is the first of Ouki's genius. It is perfect training because Ouki wants Shin to subjugate the area without being a one-man sword carry. So how exactly does Ouki want Shin to win? This is the challenge. This area happens to be home to the weakest tribe of all those vying for control. And on top of that, it just so happens that this tribe is made up of around 100 people. Ouki really is a genius. This is no coincidence. To throw Shin into a battle perfectly matching the circumstances of someone recently promoted to 100-man commander. So, Ouki wants Shin to achieve victory through leadership, to be able to lead even the most ordinary of citizens. That's the deal. If Shin can overcome this challenge, Ouki will then train him officially. Anyway, the challenge begins. Shin is already in the heat of the battle, and even though the scale of the battle is small, it is so cool seeing Shin almost acting as a general, leading at the vanguard and holding off the enemy to allow his army to regroup, and even acts as a temporary lieutenant and leads a group of citizens to reinforce Shin at the front. Could this be a sign of things to come? How did Ouki manage to make such an insignificant battle height? Continuing on, Shin uses what he learned during the Karyo campaign, telling everyone the fundamentals of a go, or in other words, fighting as a unit of 5. Using what Shin told them, the citizens were able to focus down one enemy at a time and wipe them out. Shin really is slowly becoming a proper commander. All in all, remember what I said at the start? Is a training arc for learning how to be a leader? Is it learning how to fight the best of the best? It's neither. Shin was able to seek out that mentor that taught him exactly what he needed to know, that these things work together. Ouki said it best. There is difficulty in leading, but that is why he wants Shin to learn it now, because great strength, or in other words, the ability to fight the best of the best, occurs as a result of fighting as a group, as a result of Shin being able to lead. So this is the 5th and final highlight for this arc. If you made it to the end, thank you for tuning in. Let me know what you guys thought of the Kingdom Anime's training arc in the comment section below. Did you enjoy this video? Check out my other videos. Be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to stay updated on my latest videos. I appreciate you guys.